Clarity is the first, most essential step toward real, lasting change. Without clarity, you're reacting. You're stuck in patterns that feel productive, but they're actually just distractions. People talk about wanting to change all the time, change their job, change their body, change their relationships, their mindset, their finances. But when you ask them what specifically needs to change, they get vague. They say things like, I just want to be better, or I want more balance, or I want to stop procrastinating. Those are feelings, they're not outcomes, they're not measurable, and they're not targets you can hit. Clarity means being brutally honest with yourself about what's not working, what you've been avoiding, and what you need to do next, even if it's uncomfortable. Change isn't about doing more, it's about doing the right things. But you don't know what the right things are until you sit down and get clear. You need to know where you're starting, what success looks like, and why it matters to you. Clarity is not a luxury, it's a discipline. It requires you to pause, step out of the noise, and face the facts. And the truth is, most people avoid clarity because clarity removes excuses. Once you're clear, you can't hide behind I didn't know, or I'm too busy, or it's just not the right time. Clarity forces choice. You can't change your body if you're not clear on what you're willing to eat, how you'll train, and what you'll give up. You can't change your career if you're not clear on what you really want, what value you bring, and what you're prepared to risk. You can't change your relationship if you're not clear on the standards you want to live by and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. This is where most people quit, because clarity feels like pressure. It removes the gray area, it forces you to commit, but here's what most people miss. Clarity doesn't create pressure, it creates power. It takes all the emotion out of decision making. It lets you move forward with purpose instead of guessing your way through every day. When you're clear, you stop second guessing, you stop wasting energy, you stop negotiating with yourself. You either do it or you don't, and you know exactly why. If you're feeling stuck right now, it's probably not a motivation problem. It's a clarity problem. You've set a vague goal or no goal at all. You're waiting for the perfect moment, the right mentor, the right inspiration. But clarity isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. It's a skill. You ask better questions, you define your outcome, you write it down, you look at it daily, you break it down into actions, and then you execute without drama. There's a lie that people tell themselves when they don't want to face clarity. I just need more time. No. You don't need more time, you need more focus. You need to stop doing 5 things halfway and start doing one thing with intensity. Clarity kills distraction. It tells you exactly what to say no to. It lets you move through resistance faster. And when you hit challenges because you will, clarity keeps you grounded in why you're doing the hard things. Think about this. A lack of clarity is a form of self-sabotage. If you stay vague, you never have to be accountable. You can always say, well, I wasn't sure, or I didn't really know what I wanted. That might protect your ego in the short term, but it costs you results in the long run. Clarity is a standard, and like any standard, it needs to be revisited often. As you grow, your clarity deepens. What was once acceptable no longer fits. What once felt like a stretch becomes your new baseline. This is how growth happens, not in big dramatic moves, but in quiet, focused clarity repeated consistently. You are not stuck, you are unclear, and the moment you decide to get clear painfully, honestly clear, is the moment change becomes possible. Because when you know exactly what you want, what it costs, and what you're willing to do to get it, the rest is just execution. Clarity precedes change always. The moment you take ownership, everything changes. Until then, you're living on autopilot, letting life happen to you instead of stepping into the driver's seat. Ownership isn't about blame. It's not about guilt. It's about responsibility, and responsibility is the foundation of every transformation. If you're not willing to own your outcomes, your habits, your results, then you're outsourcing your future to circumstances you can't control. That's not power, that's passivity dressed up as patience. Most people say they want change, but they also want someone or something else to be responsible for making it happen. They blame their schedule, their upbringing, their boss, their kids, their past mistakes. They tell stories about why things aren't working, why they can't start yet, why it's harder for them, but ownership doesn't entertain those stories. Ownership says, this is mine to fix, this is mine to build, this is on me. It's uncomfortable at first. Taking ownership feels heavy when you've spent most of your life waiting for the perfect conditions or for someone to give you permission, but that wait, that's what strength feels like. When you take ownership, you stop looking for rescue. You stop asking for guarantees, you stop waiting to feel ready, you shift from being reactive to being strategic. You start focusing on what you can control: your choices, your focus, your standards, your energy. There's a reason people avoid this mindset. Ownership removes excuses. When you own your results, you also own your failures. You can't blame the team, the economy, or your childhood. That doesn't mean those things don't impact you, they absolutely do. But they don't get to define you. There's a huge difference between acknowledging a challenge and surrendering to it. Ownership keeps you in motion. It doesn't let you stay stuck. You want a better body. Own your food, own your movement, own your recovery. You want a better career. Own your skills, own your work ethic, own your network. You want better relationships. Own how you communicate, how you show up, how you lead. The second you stop outsourcing the problem, you start accessing the solution. This is what separates people who grow from people who coast. One group owns everything, the other waits for everything to change. There's freedom in ownership, not because it's easy, but because it's clear. You don't waste time debating whether it's your fault. You decide it's your responsibility. That mindset unlocks speed. It lets you fail faster, learn quicker, and adjust with precision. And you don't have to fake perfection. You just have to own your direction. A lot of people confuse ownership with perfectionism. They think owning everything means never making a mistake, but it's actually the opposite. People who take ownership mess up all the time. They just recover faster because they don't get stuck in shame or blame. They assess the damage, take the lesson, and move forward. That's resilience. That's momentum. Ownership is also contagious. When you lead with ownership, you inspire it in others. You set a tone. Whether it's your team, your family, your friends, people watch how you handle pressure. When they see you take responsibility instead of pointing fingers, they rise to meet you. But if you deflect, complain, or constantly blame external things, don't be surprised when the people around you do the same. Your mindset sets the temperature for everyone around you. So the question is this: what are you not owning right now? What area of your life feels stuck because you're still waiting for something or someone else to change? You know the answer. It's the thing you keep pushing off, the thing you keep justifying, the thing you say, I'll deal with later. That's the area calling for ownership. It doesn't matter how long it's been stuck. The timeline doesn't matter. What matters is your decision right now to take responsibility for what happens next. You are not powerless. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are just one decision away from momentum. But you can't create momentum if you won't claim the problem. Ownership is the unlock. It's the moment where change becomes non-negotiable. It's the shift from hoping to creating, from waiting to leading, from surviving to building. Own it fully, and you reclaim the power to move forward with clarity, direction, and purpose. Ownership isn't everything. It's the only thing. Discomfort isn't a side effect of growth. It's the proof of it. If you're comfortable, you're not changing. That's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. We've been conditioned to chase ease, to seek convenience, to believe that if something is meant for us, it will feel natural. But real change doesn't feel natural at first. It feels foreign, awkward, unstable, and that's exactly how you know it's working. Discomfort is required because it interrupts your patterns. It breaks the loop of doing what you've always done and getting what you've always gotten. It challenges the parts of you that have settled, compromised, avoided. It reveals the resistance you've been avoiding, and resistance is where the breakthrough lives. Most people interpret discomfort as a signal to stop. They feel fear, doubt, or fatigue and immediately back off, thinking something's wrong. But discomfort doesn't mean something's wrong. It means you're stretching. Every meaningful result you want lives on the other side of inconvenience. Whether it's building a business, changing your body, developing confidence, repairing a relationship, none of it happens inside your comfort zone. You're not going to feel fully ready. You're not going to have perfect conditions. There's never going to be a version of growth that's free of discomfort because growth requires sacrifice. Sacrifice of old habits, old beliefs, old excuses. You can't change your life and stay the same person at the same time. Something has to go. Maybe it's your procrastination. Maybe it's your attachment to being liked. Maybe it's the story you've been telling yourself about why you're not capable. Letting those things go. That's uncomfortable, but staying the same is worse. The pain of discomfort is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. Discomfort also reveals what you're committed to. It exposes what you value. If your goal is to get fit, but you quit the moment a workout feels hard, what you actually value is comfort. If you say you want to level up at work, but avoid feedback because it stings, you're choosing ego over growth. Your tolerance for discomfort is a reflection of your maturity, and that's something you can build, it's not fixed. You don't become mentally tough by reading about resilience. You become tough by showing up when it's hard. By saying yes when every part of you wants to say no, by doing the things scared, tired, overwhelmed, or underprepared. That's how grit is developed. It's how momentum is created. You show up enough times in discomfort, and eventually it becomes normal. Not easy, but expected. It becomes a new standard. Most people think they need motivation to act, but discomfort doesn't care if you're motivated. It just asks, are you committed? Are you willing to feel awkward, uncertain, exposed, and still move forward? That's the real question, because motivation is fleeting. Discomfort is consistent. If you're serious about change, you have to stop waiting for it to feel good. You have to be willing to act before you're ready, to show up before you're confident, to try before you're perfect. Here's the mindset shift. Discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the path. The faster you can lean into it, the faster you grow. Think about the last time you really changed something important in your life. It wasn't during a comfortable season. It was in the tension, in the struggle, in the moment where you didn't know if you could keep going, but you did. That's the magic. That's where identity changes. That's where the old version of you starts to dissolve, and the new one begins to take shape. And don't confuse discomfort with burnout. They're not the same. Burnout is when you push without direction. Discomfort is when you push with intention. It's what happens when you're aligned with your goals but outside your comfort zone. You're still in control. You're just choosing to stretch. That choice builds trust with yourself, the kind of trust that says, I can do hard things and not break. So if it feels hard, if it feels uncertain, if you feel exposed, good. That's the process. That means you're in it. Don't pull back. Lean in. Keep going. You don't need perfect conditions. You need to stay in motion. And the more you do, the more you build the muscle of discomfort tolerance, the muscle that every successful, fulfilled, disciplined person you admire has mastered. Discomfort is not optional. It's not negotiable. It's the toll you pay for change, and the sooner you stop resisting it, the sooner you start becoming the person you're meant to be. Who you are today is not enough to take you where you want to go. That's not a judgment, it's a fact. The version of you that created your current reality has hit its ceiling. If you want a new level of results, you need a new level of identity, not just better habits, not just more effort, a new way of being. Because identity drives everything, it's the root system of your decisions, your behaviors, your standards, and until that identity evolves, you'll always revert to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is holding you back. Most people try to change their outcomes without changing their identity. They set goals, they make plans, they take action, but it doesn't stick. Why? Because deep down, they still see themselves as the same person, the one who procrastinates, the one who isn't good with money, the one who never follows through. And when your identity is out of alignment with your goals, you'll always sabotage progress. You'll find a way to pull yourself back to the version of you that feels safe even if that version is unfulfilled, overwhelmed, or underperforming. Evolving your identity starts with awareness. You have to get clear on who you've been. What labels have you accepted? What stories have you repeated? What roles have you played so long that you forgot you could change them? Maybe it's the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the lone wolf. Maybe it's the fixer, the hustler, the one who never needs help. Whatever it is, you need to call it out because you can't evolve what you won't confront. The next step is intentional creation. You have to define who you want to become in detail, not just more successful or more confident, but how that person thinks, speaks, works, leads. What do they tolerate? What do they say no to? How do they handle pressure? How do they invest their time, energy, and attention? Get specific. Identity is built through clarity and action, not hope. Then comes the hard part, acting in alignment with that future identity before it feels real. This is where most people give up. They wait to feel like the new version of themselves before they show up like them. But it doesn't work like that. You don't wait for evidence, you create it. You decide who you are, and then you live like it again and again until your mind catches up. Identity shifts are forged in repetition, not emotion. You're not faking it, you're building it. There's a difference. Faking it is pretending without action. Building it is behaving in alignment until the behavior becomes belief. It's not easy. It feels awkward. It feels exposed. It feels like you're stepping into shoes that don't quite fit yet. But that's how you grow. You show up as the person you want to be, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. And don't expect everyone around you to celebrate your evolution. People are attached to the version of you that they know. Your growth might challenge their comfort. Your new boundaries might threaten old dynamics. That's okay. Let it. You're not evolving for applause. You're evolving for alignment with your vision, your values, your purpose. This process is not about perfection. It's about congruence. You start aligning your actions with your future, not your past. The more you align, the more your environment shifts. You'll attract different opportunities, different conversations, different standards, not because of luck, but because your identity is finally strong enough to support a higher level of life. And when you hit resistance, and you will don't fall back into the old version of you for comfort, remind yourself that version already lived its purpose. It got you here, but it can't take you further. So ask yourself right now, who do I need to become to create the results I want? What does that version of me do daily? What do they stop tolerating? What do they invest in? What kind of energy do they bring into a room? Then start acting like that person today, not tomorrow, because your future doesn't change when the circumstances do. It changes when you do. Identity is not fixed. It's chosen, shaped, and reinforced. You're not stuck with the traits you've had. You're not defined by your past. You're capable of shedding what no longer serves you, but only if you're willing to let go of comfort and step into uncertainty. That's the price of evolution and the reward, becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be. Change doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't care if you're motivated. It doesn't need your emotions to line up perfectly before it begins. Change is not a feeling, it's a decision. A clear, often uncomfortable, non-negotiable decision that says, I'm done with this version of my life. Most people delay change because they are waiting for the right moment, the right mindset, or the right emotion to arrive. But that moment doesn't come, and so they stay stuck, not because they're incapable, but because they haven't decided. We've been taught to chase feelings, to wait until we feel confident, to wait until we feel inspired, to wait until we feel like we have all the answers. But feelings are unreliable, they're inconsistent, they fluctuate based on sleep, environment, weather, or a random comment someone made. If you only act when you feel good, you're at the mercy of circumstances. That's not leadership, that's reactivity, and reactivity doesn't create change, decisions do. Making a decision is powerful because it cuts off the escape route. The Latin root of the word decide literally means to cut off. When you decide, you eliminate the option of staying the same. You close the door behind you, no more back and forth, no more I'll try. No more negotiating with your old self. It becomes a full body commitment to a new standard, even if you don't feel ready, even if it doesn't feel natural yet. People think decisions are these massive, dramatic events, but most real change starts with a quiet, private moment of clarity, a line in the sand, the day you stop making excuses, the day you stop tolerating low standards, the day you realize no one is coming to save you and you decide to save yourself. That's the moment things start to shift, and from that point on, the only thing that matters is consistency. You don't need constant excitement. You don't need hype, you need follow through. That's the truth most people don't want to accept. Change isn't exciting, it's repetitive. It's doing the new thing again and again until it becomes who you are. And that's where the real friction is, not in starting, but in staying, because the emotional high of a decision fades quickly. Then it's just you and your habits, you and your calendar, you and your commitments. This is where discipline takes over, not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. The sooner you separate emotion from execution, the more powerful you become. You start to realize that you don't need to feel like doing the work in order to do the work. You don't need to believe in yourself every second in order to show up. You just need to hold the decision, hold the line, and keep going even when it's boring, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. That's the difference between people who talk about changing and people who actually do it. One group waits for a feeling, the other group moves anyway. This doesn't mean emotions don't matter. They absolutely do, but they're data, not direction. They inform you, but they don't decide for you. If you let feelings lead, you'll forever be on pause, waiting, wishing, wondering why nothing changes. But when you decide, you take your power back. You're no longer asking for permission from your emotions. You're no longer outsourcing your growth to how you feel that day. You're in control, fully, and it's not just about one decision. It's about deciding again and again, especially when life tests you. You'll be tempted to fall back into comfort, old habits, familiar patterns, and in those moments you have to redecide, recommit, re-anchor yourself to your standard, because lasting change isn't about intensity. It's about sustainability. It's about whether you can keep choosing who you want to be over and over, not when it's easy, but when it's hard. So if you're waiting to feel confident before you launch the project, have the conversation, join the gym, start the business, stop waiting. Decide you're worth it. Decide your future matters. Decide to become the version of yourself who doesn't need permission from emotion to take action. Because the people who change their lives aren't the most talented, or the most motivated, or the most supported. They're the ones who make a decision and don't walk it back. Change is not a feeling. Change is a decision. Make yours.